Hello and welcome to another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. I'm your host, Chad Marshak. I have a great program for you today. It's called How to Improve Your Balance to Help Prevent Falls and Injuries. And to me, this is a very important topic because a lot of people have falls at some point in their lifetime. And hopefully some of the things I'm going to share with you today will help hopefully improve your balance and prevent falls and or injuries. I have a special guest joining me today, Dr. Wally Stroh, who I've worked with for the last 2 years here at Body Symmetry. He's a good friend of mine. He's very fit. He's 90 years young, and he's been working with me for a couple of years now. And one of the things that's unique about Dr. Stroh is that we're on the same page with a lot of things in life. And even though that we're different ages, it's kind of neat. So he's a very good friend, and I'm honored to have you here today with me. And I think we're going to have a good time.
I think so.
Have you ever fallen before in your lifetime?
Yes.
Okay, what happened? Do you recall?
Oh, I caught my foot on something, just fell sideways and injured my knee.
Injured your knee? And
this is in the house.
This was in the house. Well, was this in the last several years?
Oh, about 3 years ago.
About 3 years ago, okay. But you've never fractured your hip or any other bone in your body. So you've been lucky.
Yes, I have been.
And I know that we were talking the other day about black ice and how that's a concern for a lot of people.
Especially for the aged.
Yeah, and it's something that you don't see. And I know a lot of people, they get to a certain age, and whenever it snows out, or especially if it ices up first,
they stay home.
They stay home and they don't want to go
And
anywhere.
I don't blame them for doing that.
Yeah, and I don't blame them for that either. But some of the things, like you mentioned, you caught yourself, your foot on something or knee on something, and you tripped and you lost your balance. And one of the things that people need to understand or appreciate about getting older is they already know this, obviously, is they lose a lot of strength. They lose a lot of flexibility and mobility. So that's one of the things that we work on here at Body Symmetry with you anyway, is just trying to improve your strength, because balance, you can do specific balance exercises, but you also need to be strong enough and stable enough in your joints to perform those exercises. If you want to do a single leg balance, a lot of people can't do that more than a couple of seconds. So that's not necessarily the only thing that you can do to improve your balance. You also have to get stronger and become more stable to improve your balance. So that's one of the goals today, is we're going to go through several exercises and share with our viewers today how they can do things within their own home, using a chair, using a step, using their own body weight, to perform a lot of these exercises.
Another important point is that in case they begin to fall, they can compensate and stop the fall.
Yeah, deceleration.
That's very critical for elderly people.
Catching yourself has a lot to do with strength. The ability to decelerate or stop your body in motion so that you don't have a really bad injury. I forgot one other piece of equipment we're going to use today, and that's the wall. So if people are living in a home with walls, which they should have, then
it'll work.
You'll have everything that you need. The first thing I want to start off with today, Dr. Stroh, is a sit to stand using a chair. I want to teach people how to get up from a chair properly. And I think what we're going to do, this is going to be better. We're actually going to face the camera. So I want you to have a seat here in the chair. I see this all the time. Matter of fact, I gave a talk not too long ago at a church, local church, and I asked everybody to stand up. And I didn't instruct them how to stand up. I wanted to watch them first. And what I noticed before, most of the people, their feet were together, so they had a very narrow base of support, and their knees were together, which you lose a lot in your body. That particular way of standing up, you lose the strength of your glutes, and you lose the strength of your hamstring. And that's something we want to take advantage of. We want to take advantage of those hamstring muscles. We want to take advantage of the glute muscles. But in order to do that, you have to position your feet properly first. So first step, we want a wide base of support, so about roughly shoulder width. Second step, we want to hinge at the hips. That means that we want to lean forward and try to get our shoulders over our heels and then drive through our heels. Let me reiterate that point. This is very important. You want to drive through your heels. Pushing your body weight through your heels is going to activate your hamstrings and your glutes to help propel yourself upward. So go ahead and stand up again. So Dr. Stroh does a great job at flexing at his hips. So he goes into trunk flexion to allow him his body to take advantage of his glute strength and his hamstring strength. He can do this all day long. If you have a low slung chair, you can go ahead and relax for a second. It's all the more important to position your body properly. So if I have this chair, and it happens to be pretty low to the ground, and I sit down, again, I want to make sure that I hinge at my hips, so I lean forward, getting my shoulder blades over my heels, my feet are shoulder width, toes pointed out slightly. I'm not allowing my knees to collapse, pushing through my heels and driving straight up. That's where you're going to be strongest. So if you want to make this, turn this into an exercise at home on a daily basis, you can do, say, 3 sets of 5 to 8 reps of sitting to standing, what Dr. Stroh just demonstrated. So go ahead and stand up again. So that's all you're going to do. You're going to do that, say, 5 to 8 repetitions, 3 sets. And so let's just do 2 more. This is so easy for him because he's been doing this for a while. I have to give Dr. Stroh heavy loads, say a medicine ball or something to hold on to, weights that he can, that will challenge him, or a very low slung chair. You can do this all day. I can come back tomorrow and you're going to still be doing this. All right, you can go ahead and relax. Very good. So if you're somebody that's has problems, say if you don't have anybody helping you, you're at home on your own, you can use, say, the back of a couch or the back of another chair. You could grab onto the chair and simply help yourself up. And the other way to do that would be to place your hands on your knees and pushing through your knees to allow your triceps to help propel you up too. That's another way to do that. So those are 2 easier ways to perform that sit-to-stand exercise. All right, so we talked about the sit-to-stand. Let's talk about some of the mechanics, some of the other exercises that we can do for your hamstrings and your quads and your calves. So go ahead and stand up, Dr. Stroh. So if you want to do some other home exercises that will help improve your balance, improve your strength, improve your gait, you can use either a step, say a stair if you have at home. I'm just going to use a step since we don't have a stair available. So you can elevate yourself on this step, hold on to the railing, and abduct your hip. So go ahead, Dr. Stroh, if you want to demonstrate this. You can do this also off the ground. We just like to use an elevated surface too. So the hip abduction, the hips are really important with gait and strength for your hips. You want to strengthen your hip abductor. So I would recommend anywhere from 2 to 3 sets of anywhere between 8 and 15 repetitions, but do what you can. So that's a hip abduction. It's going to help strengthen the hips. The other one would be hip extension. So if you're going to swing your leg back, so just bring your leg, kind of move to the, let's do this on the floor, Dr. Stroh. So you're going to bring your leg straight back right now. So just straight back. Keep your legs straight. So place your hands against the wall, and this is going to help work your hip extensors. Same idea, 2 or 3 sets of anywhere between 8 and 15 reps on each side. If you notice, he's briefly on one foot. This is a form of balance as well. He has to work on his hip. His hip stabilizers are going to work to stabilize his balanced leg. His hip extensors on the opposite leg are going to work to strengthen his glute and his paraspinal muscles in his lower back. All right, the next exercise you can do, good Dr. Stroh, is a knee flexion. So the knee flexion, he's going to balance on one foot and he's going to flex his knee, drawing his heel up to his butt. So now tap the floor and then bring your leg up. So a lot of people have a lot of tightness in the front of their hip, their quadricep muscle and their hip flexors, and they're weak in their hamstrings. So this exercise is going to actually lengthen the muscles in the front of his thigh, stretch them, and strengthen the muscles in the back of his thigh, his hamstrings. So that's really important. So these are a couple of 3 very basic exercises that are going to help strengthen the muscles around the hip, the muscles in the hamstring, and lengthen the muscles through the front of the thigh. Go ahead and turn around, Dr. Stroh. So the next thing we want to talk about is working on your dorsiflexors. If you've ever noticed somebody that when they walk, and Dr. Stroh has really good gait, go ahead and walk to me, Dr. Stroh. So he's just walking, no big deal, go ahead and turn around and walk back. If you notice, he picks up his feet. Okay, go ahead and relax, backside against the wall. A lot of people as they get older, they lose mobility in their ankles and they tend to kind of catch their toes on the ground. If you can hear someone's feet when they walk, hopefully you can hear that. That means they're stubbing their foot into the ground every time, and they've oftentimes lose that mobility in the ankle joint. So one of the things you can do, bring your feet forward a little bit more, is lean against the wall, so glutes and shoulder blades against the wall, and you're going to draw your toes up towards your knees as high as you can. I would recommend anywhere between 2 and 3 sets of, say, 15 to 20 reps, so higher repetitions, but that's going to help strengthen these anterior muscles in the lower leg to help give you a little bit more flexibility, range of motion in the ankle joint, as well as strengthen those muscles so that when your gait pattern is going to improve, you're not going to stub your foot on the ground. Very good, sir. What do you feel when you do that?
Strengthening of or tightening of the back muscles or the glutes.
A little bit in the glutes?
And the hamstrings.
And the hamstrings a little bit.
And also in the muscles bringing up the toes.
Yeah, the tibialis anterior, all the anterior muscles here in the front, the peroneals, yeah, those are important. We talked about using the wall as a tool, and we use this all the time because, especially if you're trying some of these exercises on your own at home, you need to have something stable, and walls are very stable typically. So I really like doing any type of a lateral movement on the wall, using the wall as a tool. So placing your hands here and walking laterally. So to strengthen, let's go ahead and use the wall, Dr. Stroh. So using the wall as a tool for balance and stability, especially if you don't have anybody else at home, drop your hands down just a little bit, Dr. Stroh, and step away from the wall a little bit. So just run your hands along the wall. Now go back to your right. And why do I like this exercise? Anytime you're doing, most people when they move, they walk in the sagittal plane forward, but we live in a three-dimensional world. So we've got to strengthen these muscles in the frontal plane, these external hip rotators. Very important to have strong hips. If you have weak hips, chances are you're going to have poor balance. If you have poor balance, chances are you're going to be at an increased risk of falling and or injuring yourself. So we want to try to avoid that. So we can use that. So you can progress from the wall. Now, Dr. Stroh, just move laterally. And this is easy for him, but you'd be surprised the number of people over the age of 80 cannot move laterally without losing their balance. So if I'm here and he loses his balance, I'm going to catch him. That's why it's important to use the wall. How's that feel?
Fine.
Okay. The other thing is moving backwards, using the wall to work on those hip extensors. So you can run your hand down the wall and move backwards. So you've got the safety of the wall. If you have a friend that can help you, even better. Okay, go ahead and turn around. But moving backwards is going to strengthen the gluteal muscles, the hamstrings a little bit more. And again, how many times have you had to turn around, or an individual has had to turn around quickly, suddenly, and they lose their balance? Often. This is easy for him. But use the wall first. If you can master the wall, say doing that for about a minute, go ahead and stop. Then that's awesome. But progress from the wall to freestanding where you're moving without holding on to anything. How's that, all right?
Fine.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine. Okay, so we're going to do some wall patterns next, the matrix patterns, all right? The other thing that we need to consider is mobility through the upper back. That's going to help with your posture, mobility through your hips. Also going to help with your posture, which is going to help improve balance, which is going to hopefully help prevent falls. So I like, again, using the wall as a tool, especially for somebody who is new to physical activity. We want to make sure they're safe and they don't fall. So come on over here next to me. Okay, that's good. So you know the pattern that we go, the wall matrix. So one of the things we want to do is, for this particular exercise, is we're reaching up on the wall, sliding our hands as high as you can. So this is going to help create better mobility through his shoulders. A lot of people are gunky in their shoulders. They hunch over too much. So we need to strengthen these back muscles. So the first step is just up and down. Okay, so now we'll say maybe do 5 to 10 of those on each side. Next, moving your arms you're reaching forward, okay? Or excuse me, to your side. So this is more of a rotational movement, which is going to help mobilize the mid-back, help give him a little bit more mobility in his cervical spine, a little bit more movement through his lumbar spine, and also a little bit more movement through his hip rotators. If you see, he's got action going on through his hips. But really, a lot of people lose that motion through their entire spine. So this is going to help with that. So again, 5 to 10, reaching through. Okay, that's good, Dr. Stroh. Okay, and the third and final movement we're going to do with the wall is the one where we go down. It's like we have to get something out of a cabinet. So this is going to involve your hips more. So you're going to take your right hand and bring it down like you're trying to grab something out of a cabinet, and then go to the other side. Let's drive your hips back a little bit more, Dr. Stroh. Bend those knees. And you don't want to stand too close to the wall because you want to allow your, one, you don't want to hit your head against the wall, but two, you want to drive your hips back to use your hamstrings. Keep your heels in contact with the ground because we want to use those glutes, use those hamstrings. Okay, that's good. So that level change going from mid-chest, up high, and down low is going to involve your body in different planes of motion. Very important for balance, to improve your balance, and again, help to prevent falls. How you doing so far?
Real fine.
Real fine. Good. I think you're a pro. You should do this program with me all the time.
All right.
Yeah, all the time. So maybe we're going to progress now to some different reaching type actions involving moving laterally. So we can use the wall again. We do this freestanding. So why don't you go ahead and face me. We'll do this together. So I want you to reach to your right and just touch the wall and then step away. Keep going. So you can see his action where he's stepping laterally. He's using the wall for stability and support if he needs to. But now he's working on moving, stepping. Again, that's going to drive his hip a little bit more. His adductors, his inner thigh muscles are going to lengthen and stretch a little bit more. But the big thing is he's working on the big house, his glutes. And that's really important for strength and mobility. And obviously you would do, say, 8 to 10 reps on each side. You don't have to do the other side. I wanted to demonstrate that. But what about rotational movement? So we can use the wall now as for rotation. So if we have to reach, this is an advanced kind of movement here. But we want to use the wall because if you fall back, you have the wall to protect you, catch you. So let's go ahead and do 5 reaches to your right, 5 to your left. And you can alternate these patterns. So reach up as high as you can. So if you notice here, he's got his hips against the wall. His other hand's going to brace himself. But he's getting good action through his mid-back. So a lot of mobility going on through his thoracic spine. His hips are internally and externally rotating, so he's getting good action through his hip rotators. Pretty easy.
That's right.
Pretty easy. Now, do you get dizzy when you do that?
No.
Okay.
No.
And dizziness is an issue for some people.
It was an issue for me, too.
Like if you get on the floor, and that's why I'm trying to demonstrate exercises today that are upright, where you're on your feet.
I don't have that problem now, though.
You don't have that? Yeah.
I had that 2 years ago.
You have that a couple years ago. So sometimes when people get down on the ground and try to do floor exercises, they're dizzy, their blood pressure is affected, obviously, and they get lightheaded. So that's why I enjoy doing exercises ground-based, because people, that's how they function. You know,
That's
unless
right.
you're in bed, unless you're horizontal.
Oh, that's very true.
You know, so these ground-based exercises where you're upright, I think are a lot more applicable and
It's a motion which you use in daily life.
daily life. So why wouldn't you do it otherwise?
That's
right,
right.
right. So picking things up. When we talked about that, that's common that people are outside, they drop something, say, you know, their glasses outside, and they have to pick something up. So we're going to talk about the mechanics. Let me grab something here. I'm just going to grab a medicine ball. So I think it's important to talk about the biomechanics when you have to pick something up off the ground, and I'm going to demonstrate that. A lot of people, if they have to reach over to grab an object, say their glasses, they reach out too far in front of themselves and they tip forward and they do a face plant. you want to make sure that you have proper mechanics in terms of getting the load or whatever object you're trying to pick up beneath you as best as possible, so you can use your hip, so you can have a wide base of support. Have you ever seen a building with a very narrow foundation that's super tall?
No.
No, it's got a wide foundation, a big, gigantic base that goes down in the earth.
Even the Leaning Tower of Pisa has a wide base.
That's exactly right. So if you were to pick that up, let's demonstrate mechanically what you're doing with your feet. You explain it to me.
I'm going to, first of all, astride the object I'm going to pick up.
Okay.
And I have my feet wide enough so that I have a good balance for the structure above it. So like a derrick or a crane picking up something, the structure is there holding everything together.
Set it down and stand up. So you could do this, say, 3 to 5 times. Let's just do one more for demonstration purposes and stand up. And when he stands up, you're going to look straight ahead, and he's driving his hips completely forward to use his glutes properly, to use his hamstrings. That's good. Pretty easy, huh?
It is, if you do it right.
If you do it right.
If you don't do it right, you're fumbling.
You're fumbling all about you. Yep. So the takeaway from what we just learned is making sure that the object, the load, whatever it is, doesn't matter, regardless of the weight, is centered beneath you, that you get your legs between the object, you get your trunk over it properly, and then you're not out in front. So especially if you're outside trying to pull a weed like my 90-year-old grandmother did a few years ago, she was reaching up, pulling the weed like so, and she pulled her face with her glasses into the ground, had a black eye. Didn't hurt herself, but you have to get yourself over that load in order, and a nice wide base of support to do that. So
It's absolutely true.
let's talk about gait. I think gait's really important, and how someone, when they're moving, I see a lot of shufflers where their feet, they have a really narrow base of support. What's the importance of positioning your feet and your stride length?
Well, for me, is to make a good stride and to use the heel to push off.
So you're taking.
See, now that
So
was a poor step.
That's a poor step. So if you're starting right here, where your feet are close together, do you think that's a good position to be in?
Now, this is a better position.
Better position. So now if I were to nudge you, you're pretty stable right now, aren't you?
That's right.
Okay, I love pushing 90-year-old guys around. It's probably the only person I could work over anymore. You're stable. So if you're in a crowd and you get nudged, boom, your feet are beneath you and they're wide. Now,
That's
what's
right.
going to happen if you're
You
standing
can't
in
do
a crowd,
it.
you're like
You'll
that?
fumble.
You're going to
You'll
tumble. And the other thing that you're using right now is your abdominal muscles.
That's right.
So if I push you, and this is the actual exercise that we do here.
Well, this is what you'll notice if you go to New York or Chicago and get on the bus or the streetcar. In a crowd.
You get pushed all over the place.
That's right.
They're not watching out for you, are
No, they're not interested in you. They're interested in themselves.
they? Yes.
So-
And you're a Chicago boy. How dare you say that?
That's right.
Okay. So let's go ahead and just walk. So a nice wide base. Okay, go ahead and turn around and walk back. So if you look at his gait, that's good. Relax, sir. If you look at his gait, and I'm just going to demonstrate, he's striding, he's got a contralateral movement pattern, meaning that his right arm is swinging when his left leg is forward. So he's nice and balanced, and he also gets really good hip extension, meaning that he drives this leg behind him properly, so he has good balance. A lot of people are what I would call short striders. Everything's out in front of them because they don't get any extension through their hip. So they're out here. Everything's they're kind of heel walkers. Instead of toeing off. Look at my trailing foot. Trailing heels off the ground. I'm stable and planted on this forward leg so that I can propel myself forward. In an ideal world, you would want equal distance in terms of, if this is your midline, which is on me, your heel to that midpoint and your toe from the midpoint. So if this is the midpoint, you want equal distance from the heel to the midpoint of your torso and the toe to the midpoint of your torso. And that's, in an ideal world, that's perfect stride length. But most people are just are more heel to here, pretty good distance, not much distance at all from toe to the midline. So you want to increase that stride length, use your upper body, that contralateral action, meaning if I have right arm swing, left leg forward, my abdominal muscles now can work, and that's key. Wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't use your upper body, and a lot of people tend to shuffle along like this, they lose a lot of their balance. And then you also see people looking down at the ground because they're not using their arms and their abdominals properly. So that arm swing action, keeping your head upright, looking ahead with your eyes where you're going instead of down at the ground, because this is like somebody pulling you forward. So gait and balance and stability is a lot about also knowing your surroundings, where you are, what you're encountering. If you're going to encounter a crowd, then make sure that you're stable if you're standing, that your feet are wide enough, that you have a good base of support, that you're not on a narrow little tightrope when you walk, trying not to. A lot of women think that they're models and they're walking like models, or they're crossing their, I've seen guys do this too, they're crossing their legs out in front of them. Make sure that when you stride, your feet are in alignment with your hips, so you have distance between your feet, not on a tightrope. That's really important.
Right.
Do you think we've covered everything?
I think so.
Yeah. What else? Anything else to add? Well, we could talk about a lot of things.
Oh, sure.
Just as long as we
Is there
don't talk
anything-
about politics.
Is there anything else you want to add to it, though?
I don't think so. I think we talked about, the sit to stand.
The only thing we haven't done is the swing, and I think that's important.
The anterior reaches. Okay,
Yeah.
let's add that. We've got about 90 seconds, I think. So if you, this is a more of a advanced exercise. But if you have to step, you can take an object in your house and reach and load. Go ahead and demonstrate. So he's reaching, and then he's going to stand up. And you can see that he took 2 steps, which is acceptable. 1, 2 to stand up. But the key, this is, again, an advanced exercise. It's really going to strengthen the hamstrings and the glutes. It's a big load with that trunk flexion and that forward heel plant. But you want to reach with the opposite. Yeah. And if you lose your balance just a little bit, you have to bring this foot forward slightly. No big deal. But the key is heel plant, driving through the heel as you push off, so accelerating up. You want to try one more?
And this is a problem because of the fact that you're going forward and you're going down.
Yes. And the
If
key
you
is
were
what?
up here, there's no problem.
Exactly.
The problem is to have your foot out enough that you can balance your foot there. If you're in here this way, you're going to...
You're going to go all over the place, aren't you?
You will. You have to have your foot out enough that when you reach that, the final stability is touching the thing.
That's pretty good. You know what? We're out of time.
Okay.
Yeah. I want to say thank you for joining me
You're
today.
welcome. You're welcome. It was fun.
You did a great job.
Well, thank
I
you. So
appreciate-
did you.
And I also appreciate your service in World War II.
Okay.
You're the man. You're the man. Thanks again for joining me on another edition of Personal Health and Fitness. Until next time, I'm your host, Chad Marshak. Hey, Quinn and Riley.